Hello, guys. David Vose here. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It's a beautiful day here. A little chilly. It was supposed to snow last night a little bit, but it didn't really stick or anything. It's just a little chilly, but it looks like we're still going to have some good sunny weather throughout the next week. Well, guys, I'm going to do that video that I've been telling you about. I'm going to tell you about the elixir that you can make that will literally revolutionize your life and make you healthy. Now, you heard this before. People have told you there's some kind of diet you could go on that would, really improve your health. And there's different diets going around. An all meat diet is kind of a big fad right now. There have, for years, been people that were all vegetarian, yet they were still eating garbage, right? There are certain foods I think you should absolutely never eat. One of them is flour, especially, well, any kind of flour. And I can tell you by experience that flour, if you're very, very healthy, you might not notice it. If you're not too healthy, it will give you a lot of inflammation and problems. There's, as we've said, the reason for that, you would think, well, it's just wheat, Dave. Yeah, but they process it with chemicals, bleach and peroxide, and they put formaldehyde in most of it. And so anything you eat that's got a lot of flour, like if you eat pancakes a lot, there's a lot of formaldehyde in there. And it will literally strip your gut of all the bio-nutrients. White sugar, processed, isn't good to eat in quantities that are high. Never eat high fructose corn syrup. Eat natural foods, but you all know that. You could try vegetarianism, you could try fruitarianism, you could try eating only meat, you could try the paleo diet, the keto diet. And there are benefits to some of these things. They're temporary, and I'll tell you why they're temporary. As long as you're young, you can do just about anything and still be alive in 6 months after doing it. And if you eat normally without any kind of restrictions, you're going to probably eat a lot of donuts and pancakes and, foods that maybe beer and alcohol and too much, cookies or whatever, and be unhealthy. So in the end, when you do any kind of diet, let's say you just eat meat, you're going to feel a lot healthier simply because you're no longer eating the donuts and all the bad foods. If you just eat vegetables and you don't eat the bad foods, you're going to feel a lot of health benefits. Anybody who goes out and just starts doing smoothies is going to feel better. But there is one particular thing that you need that you're not getting, that you wouldn't get if you just went out and made a smoothie. Even though you could eat that smoothie for 6 months and cure something because you're stopping some kind of poison that you've been taking. You're no longer eating that poison because all you're eating is vegetables. Maybe you're eating kale and cabbage and bananas and berries and walnuts. Well, those are all good things, and you're going to feel better on that. If you stick to that, you're going to improve your health. However, and that's a good diet, by the way. However, what we're going to do today is we're going to examine some variable of this that you probably haven't thought about. Back in the day, people used to count calories, or they make sure they don't eat carbohydrates, or some people don't eat dairy. I don't believe in that. I think that's ridiculous. Some of you say, well, I can't eat dairy. Well, that doesn't mean it's bad for you. There's a lot of people that can't eat vegetables, and I guarantee that vegetables are good for you. But because they have poor health, and you may not even know it, you may look okay, right? You 20 pounds overweight, not too muscular, but you seem fine. You don't do marathons. You say, I'm healthy, but you're not. If you can't get out and run, you're not healthy. If you can't jump down and do 20 or 30 push-ups, you're not healthy. Now, listen, I'm not disparaging anyone. I'm not healthy either, because for years I've been doing pretty much the same thing everybody else has been doing. Although, like I said, for 15 years I was a vegetarian, and there were periods of time in there where I ate really good. Really good. But then there were times when I would well, I'm a vegetarian. I can have pancakes. I can have cake. I can have a beer, I did things that might not have been as healthy as it should have been. And there was one thing I didn't know, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Something that you need to know on top of whatever diet you choose. I think a person can eat meat and be healthy. I think a person can be a vegetarian and be healthy. I would prefer to be a vegetarian because I don't like to kill animals. And I believe that even though for thousands of years human beings have eaten animals, and it was natural to do so. Animals eat animals, and cavemen, they ate animals, and paleo men ate animals, and people ate animals all the way up until today, for thousands of years. However, I don't think that humans are going to continue to eat animals forever. I think we're going to advance to a place where we morally feel that we don't want to murder and abuse animals. Now you say, well, yeah, but animals eat animals. Why can't we? I mean, it's just part of nature. It is the part of nature of this world, the present system, that's run by Satan, right? Yahweh, in chapter 2 of Genesis, cursed the ground, and it wouldn't produce but thorns and thistles, and therefore by the sweat of your face you'll eat bread until you die. And that word originally meant meat or cooked food. It's la cham. Cham means burned, cooked. So processed food. We've been eating processed food, and so I don't want to get into that end of it today. I'm just briefly saying, yes, I understand that for those of you who are meat eaters and you say, well, we've been eating meat for thousands of years, I agree with you. And if you ate nothing but meat, you'd probably live 100 years, which is really good. You might be able to live long. You might be able to sustain yourself on just meat. I don't know. I haven't tried it. However, you could sustain your health for 100 years on vegetables, probably. I'm not going to even question which would be the best diet. I can tell you that in our present state, humans probably thrive on meat in the sense of if you're just trying to live 100 years. Jesus fed his disciples fish, and I'm going to show you a scripture as we go here in a little bit about fish and about eggs, which is an animal product. And the Bible mentions the land of milk and honey too, which are both, again, those two things are animal products. And according to Jesus, the egg is a perfect gift. Now, eggs are different than fish, and fish are different than what we call meat. Under the law of Moses, fish could not be used as a sacrifice because a sacrifice was a life for a life. And unless blood is poured out, there is no forgiveness. So because fish do not have the same type of blood, plants have sap. Fish have some kind of liquid, but they don't have a pumping heart like we do. They have they're not mammalians. They don't suckle their young. And I don't care whether you understand this scientifically or not, but there certainly is a difference scientifically. But scripturally, fish were created on the fourth day, and animals were made on the sixth day, and humans were made on the sixth day. So there is a graduation of fish and then birds and then mammals. And according to the Bible, the Nazarite priests could eat fish and birds, but they could not sacrifice, slaughter animals. They were not to touch animal flesh. So there is a difference. And under the Jewish law, this is why the Catholics will eat clam chowder or fish soup, or they'll eat fish on Wednesday or Good Friday or whatever day it is, because they abstain from eating meat, but they'll eat fish. Because scripturally, fish is not meat. Okay, it may be meat to you, and in our language, it may be called meat, but biblically and scripturally, it's not the same as animal flesh. Now, not all things that live in the sea are fish either. Whales and dolphins are mammals, so we wouldn't eat those. But Jesus did eat fish. The Apostle Paul, who took the Nazirite vow, also ate fish and pigeons. He took the Nazirite vow, and all Nazirites could eat pigeons and fish, but they were not allowed to eat meat. So there are different species of creature. We'll call them a creature. They're souls. They're living beings, things, but they're not animals. Now, we also know that during the 1,000-year reign of Christ, there will be fish eating, according to Ezekiel. The 12 trees of life along the banks of the river in Ezekiel. We're going to eat them. The leaves are going to be for the healing of the nations, and the fish is going to be caught and eaten, according to Ezekiel. And of course, Jesus offered us fish. I believe, this is just my guess, that by the end of the 1,000 years, the earth will be restored to paradise. And at that point, at the end of the 1,000 years, we won't eat fish either. We will probably be advanced quite a bit more than we are now. And everyone that's on the earth at that time will be immortal. Therefore, we won't need to eat food in that sense. We'll have a different way of sharing energy. But we won't get into that today either. I do believe that the 144,000 are going to they're going to become immortal during the millennial. And when they are immortal, will probably not eat meat any longer of any kind. And they probably won't eat fish either, or birds. But I do think it's perfectly legitimate and legal, and perhaps even healthy, for people today to eat fish. Jesus told us to eat fish and eggs, and told us they were the perfect food. And there's a reason for that. Both of them have a very beautiful fatty acid content ratio balance of omega-3 to omega-6. And this is what we're going to talk about. You'll see on your screen there's a lady there. She's one of these health gurus. And she claims that she had lupus when she was a kid, when she was younger. She almost died. She went through chemotherapy. She went through everything. Had it for years. And eventually, she started eating vegetables. And she got better. And she got married to a man who was eating some kind of paleo diet. And they together worked out this protocol, or this particular diet that they claim will heal you of lupus, cancer, diabetes, and all the other, I think they might refrain from using the word cure, because they're probably not allowed to say that. But I think they believe that. And they've been helping people to cure these diseases. And she has a lot of personal views on eating. Now, I watched a video that she did, and I thought it was a wonderful video. And I think that what she's telling people to do is a very good thing to do. As you can see on the screen, she believes that flax and chia seeds are a gift from the Lord of heaven. Literally, they will heal you everything, because she believes that we're not, any of us, getting the proper ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. She's absolutely right. Although with some qualifications that I'm going to share with you later. She believes heavily in this idea that you must drink a gallon of water every day. I am my antennas go up a little bit on that, because I've never drank water. I don't know if we are or not supposed to just drink water. Sounds logical, right? Just drink water. If you're out in the forest and you're by a stream and there's a water there, there's a creek, why not just drink water? Well, for thousands of years, people took the water, poured it in a pot and put it on the stove, and made coffee or teas, herbal teas, and we've been doing this for thousands of years. And for a lot of people, they couldn't drink the water because it might have had bacteria in it and they didn't know for sure. So they always heated their water up anyway. And most people for thousands of years have drank tea, herbal teas, and coffee, and other various drinks that they would make. I personally, I don't know. I'm not a scientist in this area, and I haven't investigated it too much. But I don't know if I've ever seen any proof that when you drink water or tea or any other kind of beverage, that your body has a problem getting the moisture out of the milk. Or, here's what my problem is. Babies don't drink water. They drink milk. For 2-3 years, that's all they drink is milk. If it was somehow true that your body must have water separate from the other things that you eat or drink, then I would think that you would need to give babies a bottle of water and then a bottle of milk and then a bottle of water, but you don't have to do that. Babies drink nothing but milk. So do cows. They don't drink water until they're a little bigger. Most animals don't drink water until they're a little older. They just drink milk. And in fact, I've heard that if you run a marathon and you need to get your electrolytes, you need to get some water in you because you're thirsty after a long run, you can be dehydrated. So to rehydrate your body, they say that milk is better than water. Milk has all the electrolytes, the potassium, and everything you need to hydrate you. If it was true that you could only drink water and it would be unhealthy to drink a lot of coffee and tea and milk and stuff, then I don't think that you could make the cases that we've made. But I'm not saying you shouldn't drink water. I think after running a long marathon, a lot of people are thirsty for water. You don't have milk on hand, people drink water. There's nothing wrong with drinking water. All I'm saying is I don't think you have to drink a gallon of water. And it raises my radar antenna also that she never mentions that you must drink mineral water. I believe that if you drink distilled or purified or tap water, you're doing your body damage because of the fluoride and the poisons. And then if you drink distilled water or something, that might even be worse because you're not getting any minerals. And I think if you take, for instance, just salt by itself and don't get all the other chloride and all the other trace minerals, that you can damage your body. Your body needs salt and potassium together. Your body needs magnesium and calcium together. I don't believe you should just take one mineral and only take that one mineral. So if you're just drinking water without the other minerals, I don't think it's good for you. In fact, it'll deplete you of salt and other things. And I think that's scientifically proven. So I don't know why she doesn't remind people you must drink good water, good alkaline mineral water. So there's nothing wrong with drinking water, but don't be afraid to have a cup of coffee or a glass of tea or a glass of milk. This fear of dairy products, I believe, is ridiculous and unfounded. And as I said, if you can't tolerate milk or vegetables, then you're sick, and you need to reverse that. And to do that, you're going to have to start adding these things back into your diet. But in order to be able to digest and assimilate these things, some of these things that you can't now, you're going to have to restore your gut. And the way to do that, I believe, is eating properly with this one thing in mind, that all the foods that we eat, like, for instance, eggs or dairy, if you buy them at the store, they've been changed. They've been homogenized, pasteurized, and they've taken the fat out of it. Plus, the cows that are producing the milk are not eating grass. they're eating genetically modified corn or some other whatever they feed them, or soy, or whatever they feed them. And this is going to make the milk lack certain things such as omega-3s. So in that case, if you're eating or drinking milk that you buy at the store, it won't be as good for you, but it still will be better than doing nothing. I would not stop drinking milk if you cannot get whole raw milk. But if you can get whole raw milk, you should. But we're going to find the differences between the foods that we eat that we buy at the store and foods that are natural. And this is the key. And the reason that the foods that are natural, wild plants, are so much healthier for you is because they're not hybridized, they're not fertilized by Monsanto, they're natural, and they were what the Lord intended. And you find out that when you go and check these wild plants, they all have a lot of oil. We're supposed to eat a oil-based diet, and this is what we're going to show you today. If you're not eating natural foods, then you're missing many things from your diet. But one specifically is omega-3 unsaturated fats, like that. Polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, oleic and linoleic and palmitic and different kinds of oils and fats that you find in nuts. I believe that most of the trees in the world are nut trees. There are some bean trees, and we'll talk about them, and there are berries and there are seeds. And just about all the trees that are in the forest near you, wherever you are, you may not have heard of them, but they produce nuts and seeds. And you can go and collect them, and you can put them in your blender. And all of them, like the flax and the chia, have a high concentration of unsaturated fats and omega-3s. And that's what we're missing in our diet. You cannot get it from some of the hybridized foods like peanuts or soy or corn scratch or flour, the regular hybrid wheat, the kinds of milk that's sold at the store, or the eggs that you buy at the store. They're not as good as the wild and the natural. And not only am I going to show you that that's the key, that we're missing the oil-based diet. So if you're just eating and you think you've got all the vitamins and nutrients, and you're even making smoothies, and you think, wow, I'm eating vegetables, but you're eating hybrid vegetables like carrots and potatoes and weird things. Look, you can't just live on kale either. If you're going to make smoothies, you got to put the flax seeds, the chia seeds, or the walnuts or something in there, because you've got to have this omega-3. Because if you think about it, if you live in nature, the most abundant food is a nut, and nuts have about 50-60% fat. So if you're not eating fat at 50 or 60% of your food is not fat, even if you were a meat eater, but they ate meat for thousands of years, meat has a lot of fat. The Eskimos live on blubber. If you're not eating fat, you're going to get old quickly, and you're going to age, and you're going to have disease. So you say, okay, great, Dave, but look, I can't afford all these fancy organic foods and stuff. You don't have to. We're going to show you how to find it in nature, friends. So we're going to show you how to do this if you're not living in the country, if you're living in the city. You might even follow her little smoothie diet, this lady on the screen, Brooke Goldner or something. By the way, she's of Jewish descent. It seems like all these gurus or health doctors or politicians or movie stars, whoever they are, they seem to be Bavarians, and that's odd to me. However, I like her, and I think she's doing her best, but I only disagree with her in the fact that she says only eat her smoothies. This is her protocol, and even after you're well, you should eat mostly the foods that she's telling you, and there's very few of them, and you got to eat a lot of flax seeds. She doesn't recommend walnuts or nuts or eggs or milk, and she doesn't think you should eat meat and dairy. And again, I don't eat meat for my various personal reasons, because we're not going to eat meat in the millennial, and I want to get over that now. But I do believe you should eat fish. And she says, not really. Nuts, not really. Beans, nah. But I'm like, what? Beans have the perfect ratio of omega 3s. And that's the one thing you can buy at the store. So I don't know why she's not telling people to eat beans. So I heard about what she was saying. I thought, what in the world? So let me go and find out if my theory is right. You should eat wild fruits and vegetables. If if that's true, then the Lord should have provided. If it's true that we have to have omega 3s and we're not getting it, then surely there's omega 3s and the things that we need in the wild foods like acorns and pine nuts and walnuts, even walnuts, and maybe we should eat watercress and sorrel and thistles and dandelions and things that are wild, but cruciferous vegetables, cabbage. Yes, but to stick to just this little, you know, flax, chia, fruit, a cup of fruit only, and dark leafy vegetables like kale and cabbage, and that's it. Well, I think it would be a good way if you were going to go to the store, you know what to buy, you can get it, it works, it's good for you. But eventually, I want people to know that the best way to live and to live forever is we're going to have to go out into the country, get our own chickens, go fishing in unpolluted waters, and eat wild plants. Now, let me show you what I found out when I went on to the Goggle Brothers AI and I looked up what's really in wild plants versus the stuff you buy at the store. The first thing I looked up is acorns, of course, because I'm thinking about acorns and I'm thinking I want to look into the wild, natural things in the world because I believe from the get-go that we were intended to eat natural, not hybrid, but natural nuts. Now, today, acorns are not something that anyone seems to be eating. And they're abundant, they're everywhere. And yes, they're quite easy to process. You don't have to squeeze them or please them. You don't have to put chemicals. All you got to do is pick them, soak them in water overnight and pour off the water and roast and salt them. And you don't even have to do that. The Native Americans would boil them and make a mush. Or you can grind them up and make a bread. So if you don't like the taste of them, you grind them up, make a flour, and add whatever flavoring you want. But they are actually good. They kind of taste like a butternut to me. But it says acorns have a relatively low omega-6 to omega-3, meaning they are considered a good source of omega-3 fatty acid compared to their omega-6 content. Research indicates this ratio is typically around 2 to 1 or 5 to 1, depending on the acorn variety and growing conditions. Now, here I'm going to show you that it's not, we're not scientists by nature. And science is just something that's really pseudoscience because we don't know that exactly what our body is requiring. If our bodies require 1-to-1 ratio, omega-3 to omega-6, always, then you'd think all the food in the world would be 1-to-1 because the Lord made the food for us to eat. But I don't see that in nature. There are some things that are maybe like 1-to-1, but most of the things that we find in nature is more like 2-to-1. But notice that if you go down here, it says acorns are also known for their high oleic acid content, which is considered a healthy monounsaturated fat. A monounsaturated fat. So there's quite a few different kinds of fat inside of a nut, milk, whatever, any kind of food. So if you've got 2-to-1, that's not telling you the whole makeup of the nut because, and they're saying here, it also has a high oleic acid content, which is a fatty acid. So let's keep that in mind with other foods to see if they may have the good foods or most of the foods require or have oleic acid. I'm of the belief that if you want to know what humans are supposed to eat, go to the natural world, take a walnut, a hickory nut, a pistachio, a Brazil nut, not hybrid things like peanuts, but natural acorns and pine nuts and things like that, and find out what they consist of. Because human beings living out here in the desert, in the Southwest, or even in the mid-Southwest, mid-North, whatever, all across the Rockies and down through Utah and Colorado and, all this area, they're going to be hard-pressed to find anything except oak trees, pinyon nuts, other kind of pine nuts, and maybe juniper berries and cactus fruits. And there are, in Texas, there's a lot of mesquites. They have beans. We could take a look at their makeup. The mesquite beans, they're legumes. There's a lot of elm trees, and elms have a nut too, by the way, and they just go wasted every year. We'll take a look at that. So it says that they vary. I don't know how many people are running around checking the acorns. And you also have to remember that even wild plants in our day might be affected by the pollution and the things that we have in the world. But I'm going to go with 2 or 3 to 1 is probably the ratio of an acorn. So how about elms? Let's check the elm trees. Well, I couldn't seem to get the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. It's like they just don't seem to be able to know that. But it does say here in AI that elm seeds are made up of 40 to 45% saturated fatty acids and 55 to 60% unsaturated fatty acids. So you see, that's a more than 1-to-1 ratio. But it doesn't say if it's omega-3 or what, but unsaturated. So it could be oleic unsaturated, polyunsaturated. We don't know exactly what they're saying there, but I believe that is a very good ratio of unsaturated to saturated. Now, remember, we're not saying we shouldn't have saturated. If we shouldn't have saturated fat, then I don't think it would even be in the natural elm seeds. Now, they call them seeds, but really, what's a seed and what's a nut? Like grains, they call grains, but they have a germ, which is the seed. So there is a seed or a germ in a piece of grain. We don't call it a seed and we don't call it a nut, but we call it a grain. Well, it's the wheat fruit, right? It's what grows and is edible. But pretty much all fruit has seeds. Pears, apples, everything has a seed. Is an apple a seed? Well, an apple is a seed with a bunch of food around the seed. Why does it have food around the seed? Because when the seed or the apple drops to the ground, the seeds are in the apple. And they use the apple as fuel, as food, to grow the seed. So the food is actually the apple, but it's connected to the seed. So on a grain of wheat, the food is now you wouldn't want hybridized wheat, but I'm just saying a grain of ancient einkorn or whatever kind of ancient barley or something that you could find. But they have a pulpy part, which is like the apple, and then there is the germ or the wheat germ or the barley germ, and that's what grows, but it uses the rest of the grain as food. So elms, they may call them seeds because they are, just as a nut and everything else is a seed. But around the elm seed is also some pulpy part the food. So all these categories, seed, fruit, nut, is really baseless. Nuts, if you notice in Genesis chapter 1, where it says the Lord made all the fruit, the orchards, and it uses the word PR in Hebrew, pear, or prune, or apricot, or which is in some languages a berry, or apple with the L. In some languages they would sound it as an L, papel, but it comes from this root PR. Well, fruit, sometimes it would be ph, fur. So a fruit is what the Bible calls anything that grows on a tree. Really, what is an offspring of the tree. It's the offspring of a tree, and it could be a nut, it could be a fruit in our language, but both of them have seeds. And in fact, it would always say the pur with the seed therein. Now, the question is, do you eat the seeds or just the fruit? Well, in many cases, when you eat fruit, you'll eat the seed with it because it's easier to do so, and they're very small. And you wouldn't even know you're eating the seed. There's certainly no prohibition to eating seeds, but most seeds are designed to be so hard, they have this hard shell that you can't digest them unless you crush them up. And if you don't digest them, then they come out in your manure. Now that means that the Lord wanted us to eat seeds, because when birds eat the seeds, they poop them out and they plant them with manure around them to fertilize them. So when you look in nature, you find deer and coyotes and hogs or pigs or wherever they're wild. They eat everything, including the seeds, and they poop them out. And this supplies the fertilizer with the seed and also keeps the seed within the manure for a while till it can begin to sprout. So this is how nature works. It's perfect. We should never underestimate nature. If nature says this is what food is, then this is what we should eat, because it's what our Heavenly Father and our divine Mother Earth has provided for us. So it looks to me like nature so far is giving us about 1-to-1 saturated and unsaturated fats. Now let's take a look at the content of the nutrients and the oils in mesquite beans. Okay, this is AI. Mesquite beans contain a relatively low amount of fat, typically around 2 to 3% of their weight, with the predominant fatty acid being linoleic acid. Linoleic acid is also what we find in the flax seeds, which is the going thing with all of the juicers and the smoothie people that is putting this mixture together that I was telling you about. And so flax seeds and chia seeds are about the highest seeds with omega-3. So they love those because there's a lot of omega-3 in flax seeds. Well, this linoleic acid is in the mesquite beans, but beans by nature don't have as much fat as a nut. So, but they do contain 2 to 3% of their weight. So notice it says the linoleic acid is an omega-6 fatty acid. Well, linoleic acid is a good fat, but here it is omega-6. So this idea that you're not supposed to eat omega-6 acids, first of all, it'd be crazy because all actual food has a lot of omega-6 in it. But linoleic acid is a very good fat that you need in your body. And then it says they are considered a good source of healthy fats, particularly omega-3 fatty acids, when compared to other legumes. So this is a good source. If you go to Texas and, man, I don't know, New Mexico, all the way up into everywhere, I don't know, they probably have in Colorado everywhere, there's these mesquite trees. They have pods hanging down from them everywhere. One mesquite tree, you could probably go out and collect a 50-pound bag of these beans off of a mesquite tree. Then shell them and boil them, I suppose, just like any other bean, and you can make a pot of beans, and you could crush them and make flour, but they're very edible and they're very good for you. All right, let's take a look at pinyon nuts. Now look at this, and again, it's going to be confusing because they want you, the health gurus want you to check the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 to see if it's healthy. Well, that's not always easy to do when you're looking at wild nuts. But I'm of the opinion that they really don't know what they're talking about, because we just read that linoleic acid is a omega-6, but as we see here, it's an unsaturated fat. Now, then they tell you that you want unsaturated. You don't want the saturated. And yet most all of the food in the world comes in a ratio of unsaturated to saturated. So if you're looking at the pine nuts and looking for omega-3, it might not have as much as you'd want of the omega-3 according to the gurus. However, if you actually dig a little deeper, it says that the pinyon nut, known as the pine nut, primarily composed of unsaturated fatty acids, with a significant portion being polyunsaturated fats. Well, poly's got to be good. You got the mono, which is the one, and the poly, which is the many. And this we saw the mono unsaturated. Who knows? We're not scientists. Is that good or is that bad? I don't know. But it's unsaturated. And then we got the polyunsaturated, like linoleic acid. So linoleic acid is unsaturated, or a polyunsaturated fat. I think it's probably good for you. It's unsaturated, whatever that means, sounds good to me, but I'm going to eat it because it's a natural nut. So it has that, and it contains only a small amount of saturated fat. The major fatty acids found in pine nuts include oleic acid, which is a monounsaturated fat, and a phenolic acid, which is a polyunsaturated fat, making them considered a healthy fat source. Wow. So we're learning what the truth is. We're not going to go by some Judean Bavarian guru who tells us that all we can eat is kale and maybe some flax seeds and chia seeds. Throw some cabbage in. Hey, I'm doing that because it's easy to go buy it at the store because they stock up that stuff up. Although I've noticed that a head of cabbage is $5 now at Walmart, where it used to be like $1. So I think it's going high because all the gurus are putting it in their smoothies and they're selling it like hotcakes, like spinach and kale now. When I was young, you couldn't give kale away. Kale was something you used on the side to decorate your plate. Other than that, we didn't eat it, so we didn't use it. Well, now, voila, it's a health food, so everybody's eating it. But nobody wants to eat kale, so they put it in their smoothies. But what we're finding is what is the actual nutrients and fats and minerals that we need by looking at what's actually in the wild plants that grow in your area. Now, we'll get to the hickory nuts, the walnuts and stuff that you might find in the East area, in the Appalachians. And we'll also look at some nuts that you might find in Australia or maybe Africa or China or somewhere else, so that you get an idea how the Lord works. It's like the same all around the world. Wherever you are, what grows locally there is going to have the proper food balance that you need, wherever you are. So let's take a look at some of the Well, what else? What else do we have here? We've looked at, in the Midwest, in the western part of the United States, we've got pine nuts, we've checked that. We've got acorns, we've checked that. We've got mesquite beans, we've checked that. We've got the elm, and we've checked that. Anything else we're missing before we move on to the East Coast? Well, how about we check the juniper berry, and we'll look at the gooseberry, and we'll look at the huckleberries. They grow wild in Idaho and up through Canada. We'll look at the wild thimbleberries that grow in. We got the Oregon grapes. We could check out their content and nutrients, and just we'll start with that. Okay, cactus fruit and its byproducts containing a variety of fatty acids, including linoleic, oleic, palmitic, and stearic acids. Cactus pear fruit seeds. The seeds contain high levels of linoleic, palmitic, and stearic acids. The seeds are also a source of sugars, minerals, amino acids, phenolic compounds, and vitamin C. The cactus pear peel contains polyunsaturated fatty acids, natural antioxidant vitamins, and sterols. The vitamins and minerals is vitamin C and K, as well as calcium, magnesium, potassium, and iron. The antioxidant compounds, phenolic acids, flavonoids, pigments that act as antioxidants. The carotenoids, the main carotenoid in cactus pear peel is lutein, B-carotene, and violaxanthin. Some studies suggest that eating cactus fruit may reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease by lowering cholesterol and blood fat levels. Interesting, is it not? But if you look down here, the prickly pear seed oil is rich in essential unsaturated fatty acids, including linoleic acid, 61%, followed by oleic acid, 25%, and palmitic acid of 12.32 or 23%. These have benefits including protecting the heart and controlling inflammation. So yeah, that seems like a very good choice. And they're all over the desert, along with the mesquite beans and the elm nuts and the acorn nuts and the pine nuts. So there's a lot to eat in the desert, friends. Now, let's take a look at, what did we talk about? Let's take a look at the juniper berry. The juniper berries contain a variety of fatty acids and other nutrients, including essential oils. Juniper berries contain an essential oil that's about 2% of their volume. The oil is made up of monoterpenes, such as A-pinene, micrine, saponine, and limolinine, and B-pinene. Sounds intriguing. Fatty acids. Juniper berries contain a variety of fatty acids, including linoleic, palmitic, oleic, stearic, eicosapentaenoic, and liganoxyric acid. It appears that we need a variety of acids for these health gurus to run around saying that all we need is omega-3 and we'll be fine is a little disingenuous, because they don't even study or talk about the other acids, like, that we've mentioned here. And they don't distinguish between what looks to be like many different kinds of oils that's in fruit and nuts. It has vitamin C, and it has flavonoids. It has coumarins, other nutrients, has resins, proteins, acetic, malic, and formic acids. And then notice here it says it has antioxidant properties, has been shown to reduce cellular damage in yeast cells and inflammation in human skin cells. So that sounds good, right? All right, let's look at the gooseberries. Gooseberries are very low in fat, containing less than 1 gram of fat per cup, and are primarily composed of carbohydrates with a significant amount of fiber. Their key nutrients include vitamin C, vitamin A, potassium, and magnesium, making them a good source of antioxidants and essential vitamins with a minimal fat content. High vitamin C, notable amounts of vitamin A, vitamin B6, small amounts of vitamin E. Notable minerals include potassium and manganese. Fiber content, good source of dietary fiber. Well, there you go. That's what kind of food we're supposed to eat. Now let's look at huckleberries. Huckleberries are considered to be very low in fat, containing negligible amount of fatty acids, are primarily composed of carbohydrates, mainly fiber and sugar, with a small amount of protein and a rich source of vitamins and antioxidants, particularly vitamin C. Essentially, they contain almost no saturated, monosaturated, or polyunsaturated fats. Other important nutrients: fiber, vitamin C, antioxidants containing anthocyanins and flavonoids, potassium, and sugars. Now, if you're in Idaho, in Canada, where these grow, you're going to get some sugar out of this, very little oils, and some minerals, and some fiber. But the key thing seems to be the sugar. You can only harvest them in the summer, and they're perishable, so you'd have to dry them like you would a raisin, I guess, to use them later on in the season, or you could, I suppose, can them. But I don't think in nature we're really supposed to can food because, I don't know, it's a process using a lot of sugar. I think fruit, if it's going to be preserved, probably should be dried. But in the woods or in the forest, you find a lot of trees. And there's probably 1 out of 20 trees or bushes that are fruit or berries. Most of them are nuts or beans. So I don't think we're supposed to get a lot of sugar in our diet. Oh, and plus, we haven't even gotten into watercress and sorrel and, thistles and all these other kinds, dandelions and things like this that you could eat. Amaranth. This all grows everywhere. Up in Idaho, along the road, my mother used to go out and pick wild asparagus. You could also find ginger growing through the forest. We've got mushrooms. So we'll touch on that too. But right now, let's just look at the main fruit, nuts, and things that we find in the forest. So let's skip now to birch. Now, I know I used to live in Idaho. We have a lot of birch there. I know that birch grows in different parts of the world. I don't think one person in 1,000 would even imagine that you could eat, that birch trees have nuts. But just about all the trees do. And you can eat them, almost all of them. And look at this. Yes, birch trees produce seeds that are often called nutlets. The birch seeds are small, winged, lightweight, and they don't have hard shells. They're dispersed by the wind and water once the fruit, called a straw bile, dries and turns brown. The fruit of the birch tree is a cone-shaped structure called a straw bile that contains the seeds. Notice the birch seeds are an important food source for birds and small mammals. The wood, bark, and the nuts of birches also have many commercial uses, such as making toothpicks. And you can tap the birch like you do the maple, and you get, like maple syrup, you can get birch syrup, from what I understand. How about the cedar trees? Do they have nuts or seeds? It says yes. Cedar trees produce seeds, not nuts. Female cones contain seeds and ripen from September to October. It's an important food source for wildlife, especially birds. Interesting. Of course, there's what? Oh, that's eastern red cedar. I thought it was juniper, but that's a red cedar. So how about the maple trees? Do they have seeds? Well, they have seeds, but not nuts. And the maple tree seeds are also known as double samaras, or like helicopter spinners, whirlers. Elms are that way too, but they have like a little nut in the butterfly thing or propeller thing. The whirlers, spinny jennies, whirly birds, and wing nuts. So they say it's a seed, see, but it's really good sized seeds, kind of a nut, and you can eat them. And look at this, they drop their seeds at the end of spring. Now, see, they're on the right. You see a picture of one. You see that? They're pretty good little sized seeds. You take the whole thing, the whirly part and the seeds, and crush them up and make flour. But are they edible? Yes, maple seeds are edible and are a good source of protein, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and oils. They're also known as samaras or the helicopters, and we saw that. So you can soak them to remove the bitterness. It says you can eat them raw. You can roast or boil them, saute them, mix them into mashed potatoes. Well, there you go. And you can drink the sap, which is, of course, maple syrup. It says all maple seeds are edible, but some taste better than others as a general rule. Smaller maple seeds are sweeter, and larger ones are more bitter. Nutritional benefits from maple seeds include proteins, vitamins, minerals, and oils, including omega-3, 6, and 9. Well, there you go, friends. Ooh, buddy. I wonder how many other trees we could look up that you would have no earthly idea would have been a food source. You see these little seeds floating around in the forest and all over the ground, but we step on them and you're like, oh, that's just bird seed. Humans can't eat that. Well, yes, we can. I imagine you can get whole bags and bags full of these seeds, grind them up, make flour, or just eat them, roast them and eat them like sunflower seeds. So how about the aspen trees? Yes, aspen trees have seeds. So I asked them if aspen seeds are edible, and it says yes. Harvesting aspen seeds can be harvested from branches cut with pole pruners or by shooting branches from the tree. With high velocity shells, it's important to not harvest aspen seeds in wet weather. Okay. You can actually eat the bark, the inner bark, grind it into meal, and you can eat the sap, which is like maple syrup or aspen syrup. Do spruce trees have seeds? Yes, they grow in cones. You can collect them. How to extract the seeds: place the cones in a paper bag and let them dry for 1 to 2 months. The cones will open and the seeds will fall out when you shake the bag. Interesting. Are spruce seeds edible? Yes. All parts of the spruce tree are non-toxic and edible, including the seeds, tips, and needles. Spruce tips, which is like the green part at the end of the branch. It can be eaten raw, cooked, or pickled. Wow. You can make a sauce with it, a marinade, a tea, a tincture. They have a flavor that is sweet, resinous, lemony, astringent, and tart. The spruce needles can be used to make a hot tea, and the tiny seeds that are edible. Spruce trees are a part of the pine family. Oh, I didn't even know that. And all spruce varieties from the pine or the Pinaceae family are edible. Interesting. So I wanted to see the fatty acid nutrients and stuff like this from the Oregon grapes. It says the Oregon grapes are also known as barberry, contain negligible amounts of fatty acids, are primarily rich in phytochemicals like berberine, a potent alkaloid with antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, alongside flavonoids, tannins, phytosterols, resins, which contribute to its potential health benefits. Well, that sounds healthy. Manzanita berries are edible, so you can eat the berry but spit out the seed, and can be eaten raw, used in smoothies, or added to baked goods. They can be eaten ripe when red or green for slightly sour taste. Some say they have a sweet tart flavor and starchy texture. So you can eat manzanita berries, but don't eat the seed. So then we're going to go to the East Coast. You can find chestnuts over there. Chestnuts are considered a low-fat nut, containing primarily unsaturated fatty acids like linoleic and oleic acids, with only a small amount of saturated fat. They should be a very healthy choice then. Their primary nutrients include carbohydrates, starch, fiber, vitamin C, potassium, manganese, and a moderate amount of protein. I keep seeing a lot of manganese in a lot of foods, but that doesn't seem to be one of the minerals that people talk about. We talk about magnesium, but there seems to be a lot of manganese in a lot of these fruits and vegetables. So perhaps we need more of that. And a moderate amount of protein while being very low in calories compared to other nuts. Vitamin C and B as well, and thiamine and riboflavin. We look up the hickory nuts, high in healthy fats, including omega-3, and contain many other nutrients. Fatty acids, protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals, including potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, and calcium. Fat content, 64 grams of total fat per 100 gram serving. So that's like 60% fat, including 7 grams of saturated fat, 22 grams of polyunsaturated fat, and 33 grams of monounsaturated fat. You get a real good balance in nature, don't you? Protein, 12.72 protein per 100 grams. Carbohydrates, you see what I mean? In nature, you need more fat than you do protein. You see what I'm saying, guys? We need to lay off all the protein and start, well, forget laying off protein or fat or any kind of thing. Just eat the wild nuts and berries and fruits. And you can go right out your backyard, as we're going to show you, and pick these nuts and fruits. And it's not like, oh, well, I need all the fruits, the different kinds. Wherever you live, that's the ones you're supposed to eat in your local area. So there's vitamins, thiamine, pantothenic acid, B6 and riboflavin, and potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, and calcium. Wow. 77 grams of fat, 15 grams of protein, 22 grams of carbohydrates. So the ratio there with that nut is 77% fat, 15% protein, and 22% sugar, carbohydrates, whatever. Although, remember, carbohydrates, though it is sugary, is a lot of fiber and it's a different kind of sugar. It doesn't really go into the, it's more of a fiber. It doesn't really digest right into your bloodstream. So it's very little sugar. Now, the walnut, this is what I was interested in because this is supposed to be one of the best nuts you can get. The walnut is primarily composed of fat, with most of it being polyunsaturated fatty acids. Okay. Most of it's polyunsaturated, particularly the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid called alpha-linoleic. Now, see here now they're saying linoleic acid is an omega-3. It's an ALA, meaning that's the kind you get from vegetation. A single serving of walnuts also provides a good amount of protein, fiber, and several vitamins like vitamin B6, folate, with minimal carbohydrates and sugars. 1 ounce of walnut is a powerhouse of important nutrients for optimum health, including an excellent source of alpha-linoleic acid, the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, and the most ALA of any other tree nut. Okay, so the word ALA actually is alpha-linoleic acid. So that's what you want, is the linoleic acid that comes from the flaxseed as well. How about the beech nut? You get those in the Appalachians. The beech nut contains a variety of fatty acids, including linoleic acid, the most prevalent fatty acid in beech nuts, making it up to 40% of the total. Oleic acid, the second most prevalent fatty acid in beech nuts, making 35% of the total. And gandoic acid. There's all kind of acids. I think we need a variety. We need to eat what the Lord provides in the forest. The third most prevalent fatty acid in beech nuts, making 7.7% of the total. They're high in protein and calories and contain other nutrients such as tocopherols and sterols and carotenoids. All the nuts and seeds and things are all different, aren't they? But one thing I'm seeing is that most of the trees that grow in the wild are kind of a nut, and most of them have a lot of fat, over 50% fat in most of the nuts, up to 60 or more percent. Evidently, the walnuts more than that. Brazil nuts contain a variety of fatty acids and other nutrients, including fatty acids. Brazil nuts contain 19 grams of fat per serving, with the majority of it being heart healthy. Saturated fat, 4.5 grams, monounsaturated fat, 7 grams, and polyunsaturated fat, 7 grams. Protein, 4 grams, carbohydrates, 3.3 grams. So you find sugar in the nuts in the form of a carbohydrate, but you're not going to process that like you would sugar. It's bound up in the molecular structure, and your body doesn't process it like it would actual sugar. But you do probably get a little sugar from it as it's digesting very slowly, and it probably goes slowly into the bloodstream. But I think a lot of the sugar that's in the carbohydrate ends up just going out the other end. Not quite sure in every case of every type of carbohydrate, but there certainly are different kinds of carbohydrates. Some of them are very hard to digest, and you don't get any of the sugar in your blood. We have selenium, phenolic compounds, sterols, and vitamin E. They're a good source of dietary fiber. It can improve cholesterol levels and lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. So I looked up what are the most common trees in Brazil. And it says among the emblematic ones are papaya, guava, and mango. Let's see if we can find the top 10. The top 20 most common trees. Well, they mentioned the emblematic ones again. But what else? We've got papaya. Those look like some nice fruit there. Guava, Suriname cherry, mango, coral plant, peacock flower, avocado. They just grow wild there. That'd be nice. Poinsettia, that's a tree. Jaboticaba tree, the Brazilian pepper tree, Barbados gooseberry. These aren't trees. Lemon, corn plant, prickly pear, tropical almond, the jackfruit, the lipstick tree, and the cashew. All right, let's look some of those trees up. Avocado. It contains a significant amount of healthy fats, primarily monounsaturated fatty acids like oleic acid, along with notable nutrients like fiber, potassium, vitamin K, folate, vitamin E, and vitamin C. Good source of vitamin K, E, C, B6, and folate. Minerals, particularly high in potassium, with magnesium, copper, and manganese, fiber, and phytochemicals, malic acid, and tartaric acid can be present. The papaya contains very little fat, with the majority of its fat content coming from its seeds, which are primarily composed of oleic acid, followed by palmitic acid, linoleic acid, and stearic acid, making papaya seed oil a good source of monounsaturated fats. The fruit itself is rich in vitamins A and C. I'm noticing that it seems like perhaps we're supposed to eat the seeds in many cases, at least when they're edible, and crush them up because they're probably not going to be digestible until you grind them up. But so I haven't heard a lot of people talking about papaya seeds, but they seem to be a good source of fat. But the fruit itself is rich in vitamin A and C, fiber, potassium, folate, antioxidants like beta-carotene and lycopene. We got guava, a very low-fat fruit containing only a small amount of fat per serving, with the majority of its nutrients coming from carbohydrates, vitamin C, and minerals like potassium and magnesium. Its fatty acid profile is minimal, meaning it contains only trace amounts of saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fats. It seems to me if you go down to warmer climates like Brazil, we're talking a lot of fruit there. In the northern climates, there's more nuts. But we got papaya, guava, different kinds. Don't see a lot of nuts. And the fruit has more sugar and not as much oil. But I would say, unless you eat the seeds in the papaya and eat the seeds in the guava. They mention the Suriname cherry as one of the top trees you find in Brazil. And it's called a pitanga. It contains a very small amount of fat. Boy, there's a lot of fruit down there. Not as many nuts. Primarily composed of unsaturated fatty acids and is primarily nutrient dense with high levels of vitamin C, vitamin A, dietary fiber, potassium, and a small amount of B vitamins, with minimal protein and fat content per serving. Minimal protein and fat was mostly carbohydrate. Well, every fruit or nut seems to be made up of a different and varying amounts of different things. Some is high in fat, some is low in fat, some is high in carbohydrates or low in carbohydrates, some is high in protein or low in protein. So it seems to me that you really can't say that you should only eat a high-fat diet, because if you're living in Brazil, you might get a high sugar diet. But it'd be okay if you ate it from the whole fruit, because then you're going to get a whole bunch of other nutrients that probably counteracts that. So perhaps our bodies can eat a sugar-based diet or a fruit-based diet if you eat the whole fruit, because within the fruit, and you eat the nuts, or I should say the seeds in the fruit, you're going to get your oil. And all the nutrients and minerals that are in that fruit is going to process the sugar or the carbohydrate or whatever's in that fruit. So I think what we're learning here is, man, these health gurus are talking about you've got to have food, only eat flax seeds and kale because they've got the right nutrients for you. But that might work with that combination. But it might also work if you ate the whole papaya, which would have different variations of minerals and ratios of fat and protein and carbohydrate content. So I think what we're finding is go outside, pick a natural plant, harvest it, look on Google, see if it's healthy for you. If it's plenteous in your like if you go out, you're in Australia and you've got some kind of tree out there, like eucalyptus that grows all over Australia. Well, we'll look up eucalyptus and see what's edible on the tree or what's not. But I'm just giving an example. Wherever you live, go out in your backyard and see what tree is producing some kind of a nut or a berry or a fruit that you can go and harvest for free. Even if you've never heard of anybody eating it, just look it up on your Google app and ask Google, is it edible? How do I harvest it? How do I eat it? And you're probably going to be able to eat for free and be healthy. And there's probably right out in your backyard. Even if you're in the city, I'm sure you could drive 20 miles out of the city and find a forest or a grove of something and pick whatever's available that's edible. Put it in your smoothie mixer and add some milk or some eggs or whatever you want in there. Eggs, nuts, or whatever else you want that you like the flavor of. The mango contains a very low amount of fat, with most of its fatty acids located in the seed. Seems like all these fruits you got to eat the seed to get your oil content, or the kernel, and includes primarily palmitic, stearic, oleic, and linoleic acids. While the edible fruit pulp is considered fat-free and is rich in nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin A, fiber, potassium, and a small amount of protein, making it a low-calorie fruit. The top 10 wild trees in Australia are eucalyptus, acacia, banksla, bottlebrush, coolibah, the lemon-scented tree, the mountain ash, and the walimi pine. So let's check out a couple of those. Let's look at the eucalyptus. But it says the fruit, known as the capsules or the gomnuts, are not edible. Some parts of the eucalyptus tree are edible, can be used in cooking and medicines. The leaves can be used as a flavoring in small amounts in food or made into a tea. However, eucalyptus leaves are high in toxic compounds. So I wouldn't eat the eucalyptus, but you can use the oil and make tea out of it. Acacia trees that you find in Australia are edible. The seeds, the flowers, and the pods. Now, if you notice the acacia tree, and it grows all around the world, different varieties of acacia. But what we're talking about over here in America, we have mesquite. It is related to the acacia. They look almost identical, actually. And they both have bean pods. And both of the varieties and other varieties of this type of acacia all over the world have these bean pods. But you can grind the seeds up. They are definitely edible. Now, the acacia beans or the acacia seeds contain a moderate amount of fat, with the predominant fatty acids being oleic acid, linoleic acid, which are both considered unsaturated fatty acids, making them relatively healthy fat source. So you see, all of these wild beans, nuts that have fat seem to have a combination of a ratio. And they don't seem to be all of them heavily just omega-3. But they do seem to be predominantly unsaturated fats. But I don't know. I'd have to go back and look carefully. And we haven't gone through all the different varieties. We do see a variety of this ratio. My guess is we should just concentrate on eating whole foods that you find in nature. And then when we go to what are the most common trees in Europe, we've got the same thing: eucalyptus, the pine, the acacia, and the abies. So basically in Europe, you're going to find a lot of pine trees and stuff and things, acacia trees, and a lot of the same kind of trees you're going to find here in America. There you go. Just look out your backyard. Caraway seeds contain a relatively small amount of fat, primarily composed of fatty acids like linoleic acid, omega-6, oleic acid, monounsaturated, and petrosinolenic acid, with a notable nutrient profile including iron, zinc, calcium, and fiber, though the exact content can vary depending on the source. Is small amounts of protein and carbohydrates. All right, so the store-bought milk's omega-3 and fatty acid content can vary depending on the type of milk and how it's produced. Organic milk has a healthier omega-6 to omega-3 ratio than conventional milk, with a ratio of 2.3 to 1 compared to 5.7 to 1 in conventional milk. So 2 to 1, omega-6 to omega-3. Grass milk has a lower omega-6 to omega-3 ratio than organic milk and conventional milk, with a ratio of 0 to 95. Raw, whole, organic, grass-fed milk has near a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 or omega-3. So there you go. And that's then how the Lord intended you to eat and drink your milk, with a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is 1-to-1. So this lady who says you shouldn't drink milk because it's bad for you and it doesn't have enough omega-3, she's literally just, I don't know, I think she's selling you something. But buy your raw, whole, organic, grass-fed milk. But notice that even ordinary store-bought milk still has omega-3 in it, like 2-to-1, which isn't that bad. And as we've seen, the ratios vary in all kinds of plants and foods. So there's your milk. Looking at free-range organic eggs can have a higher omega-3 content and better fatty acid ratio than standard eggs. Omega-3 content. Free-range eggs can have more omega-3s than standard eggs because the hens that lay them have access to fresh food and water as well as grasses and insects. Their diet may also include ingredients like flax seeds, algae, or fish oils. The ratio is omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids is between 1-in-1 and 1-in-4. I guess what they're saying is that a good egg should be 1-to-1. If your chicken's running around eating bugs and grasses and whatever they eat, seeds and so forth. There you go. Now, don't take the Goggle Brothers' word. Listen to what Jesus says. Jesus said, well, let's read that right out of the Bible because this is important. So it says, what father among you, if his son asks for a fish, will give him a snake? Or if he asks for an egg, will give him a scorpion? So if you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven? Now, he's talking about good gifts, but he's also talking about food, right? Because if you ask for a fish, you're not asking for a fish so you could play with it. You're asking because you're hungry. So I also think that there's an interesting parallel here. Fish and snakes. The fish is something I think that might represent your DNA, but it's the good side. So the immortal spiritual DNA is a fish, multiplying, right? Growing. But the serpent is the carnal flesh that we've talked about over and over again. So if you ask, he's talking about food here primarily in the literal, but in the spiritual esoteric meaning, He's saying if you're asking the Heavenly Father for pure, healthy immortality, He's not going to give you a dead, dying, mortal body. So us being mortal is not normal. But if you eat snakes, maybe it is. Or if you eat poison, maybe it is. But you should be eating fish. And that is the primary food that Jesus is saying is one of the healthiest foods, is fish. He fed his disciples fish. But then he says, if you ask for an egg, why would you ask for an egg? To eat it. He will not give you a scorpion. Well, you wouldn't eat a scorpion, but you would eat an egg. And he says, your Father knows how to give good gifts. So, I think we can be certain that Jesus is telling us that we should eat fish and we should eat eggs. And you can look this up, but eggs have the most balanced cholesterol as well as the most balanced protein of any other food. Let me show you. Eggs provide a complete amino acid profile, crucial for human health. Unlike peanuts, beans, therefore, while other foods have nutritional benefits, they do not surpass the egg in terms of protein quality. This article says 6 reasons why eggs are the healthiest food on the planet. Eggs are so healthy, they're called nature's multivitamin and top many lists of superfoods. Here are 6 healthy facts you may not know about eggs. Eggs are so nutritious that they are often referred to as nature's multivitamin. They contain unique antioxidants, powerful brain nutrients that many people are deficient in. Whole eggs are among the most nutritious foods on earth. One egg contains an amazing range of nutrients. One large egg contains vitamin B12, vitamin B2, vitamin A, vitamin B5, selenium, and they contain small amounts of almost every vitamin and every mineral required by the human body, including calcium, iron, potassium, zinc, manganese, vitamin E, folate, and many more. A large egg contains 77 calories with 6 grams of quality protein, 5 grams of fat, and trace amounts of carbohydrates. It's very important to realize that almost all the nutrients are contained in the yolk. The white contains only protein. Eggs improve your cholesterol profile and do not raise your risk of heart disease. The main reason people have been warned about eggs is that they're loaded with cholesterol. One large egg contains 212 milligrams of cholesterol, which is a lot compared to most other foods. However, dietary sources of cholesterol have a minimal effect on cholesterol levels in the blood. Your liver actually produces cholesterol every single day. The amount produced depends on how much you eat. If you get a lot of cholesterol from your food, your liver produces less. If you don't eat cholesterol, your liver produces more. The thing is, many studies show that eggs actually improve your cholesterol profile. They raise HDL, the good cholesterol, and they tend to change the LDL, or the bad cholesterol, to a large subtype which is not strongly associated with an increased risk of heart disease. Multiple studies have examined how eating eggs affects the risk of heart disease and found no association between the two. On the contrary, eggs have been linked with health benefits. One study discovered that eating 3 whole eggs per day reduced insulin resistance, raised HDL, and increased the size of LDL particles in people with metabolic syndrome. Anyway, I can't believe we're an hour and a half. I don't know. There's nothing I can cut out. So the video is just going to be long. If you haven't got this far, I'm sorry that you didn't get here, because this is the whole point. If you're thinking about all of that I said and you thought, well, that's interesting, but how's that going to help me? Well, ultimately, it will help you if you can get out of the city and start living out in nature. If you can't do that, you can't go out and eat your acorns and all of this, The answer then is kind of a little trick way to do this, is what this lady here, her Dr. Brooke Golder, or whatever his name is, her name. And like I said, while I don't agree with only teaching this one little trick, and she says don't eat meat and don't eat, and I don't agree with her on these things. And that's why I did this entire video on all this, what we're supposed to actually eat. We need to know that. We need to know what we're supposed to eat. So in that case, you know that what we're about to tell you is going to improve your health and restore your health with things that you could buy at the supermarket if you can't get out into the wild. And that is to eat flax and chia seeds, like a handful of flax and chia seeds. She says water. She doesn't believe you should put milk in it, but I put milk in it, especially if you can get some whole milk or raw milk. Put fruit. Well, I put blueberries and a banana, and dark leafy vegetables. The best, I believe, that you can use is something, if you're going to go to the stores, like kale, cabbage. Just how much? Well, fill your blender, press it down tight, fill it completely chock full of, first put the chia and the flax seeds in your blender, within it, nothing else in there. Put the lid on it and grind it to a powder. Then take the lid off, put the cabbage or spinach or kale or broccoli, stuff it down in there as tight as you can. On top of that, put a banana. You can put a raw onion. It actually tastes good. I don't taste too much of the oniony taste. Raw onions are really good for you, but she doesn't tell you to do that, but I say that you could do that. You can put cranberries in there. You can put blueberries or both, a banana, and fill the rest of it up with water or milk. And then blend that and drink it like a milkshake, and do the entire big size, a large size blender. Do that once a day. At least you can do it twice a day. You can eat nothing but that for several weeks or months. And you will get ripped, you will get thin, you will not be hungry, and you will be healed after some time of all your diseases, because you're getting the omega-3s, the proper oils from the flaxseed and the chia seeds, and you're getting the sulforaphane or whatever it's called that's in the cabbage. These kind of vegetables, these dark green vegetables, collard greens, that kind of thing, they will heal your gut, and they have all the nutrients that you need and minerals. Do not put distilled water in this. If you're going to use water, you must use mineral water. Good, very good, clean mineral water. Hopefully well water or creek water, but you can also use milk. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, friends. That's my elixir. What this lady is promoting with her little protocol, I think it works. I think it's a good place to start. But once you get going on that, try to go out into your surrounding area and get you some acorns or some pine nuts or some walnuts or other things to put in there. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. It's been a long video. I'm so sorry, friends. I hope most of you watched till the end. We'll see you tomorrow. Lord will bless you. Have a good one.